Papa Elon bless. But I beseech you, do not continue to forsake your loyal acolytes of the two-wheeled order. We know that you fill your days blessing us with gifts of rockets, loops, submarines, and luxury cars, but I beg of you, bestow unto us an electric motorcycle that is worthy of your name. I sacrifice for you!
Welcome to RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm Alex, and I am fabulous. A few months ago, I did the really boring motovlogger thing of going out and test driving a couple of motorcycles. Primarily, I wanted to try out the 2018 Triumph Speed Triple RS on behalf of my boy Ride the Piggy. Really nice bike. Probably should have bought a Triumph instead of my Buell. We'll see what happens with the cop thing in 2019. But I also found out my local Triumph dealership carries a different type of motorcycle that leans into my tech bro douche side.
Wow. Holy shit. What a weird feeling.
If you haven't figured this out yet, I'm a huge nerd, and the idea of having a high-tech, electric, light cycle style motorcycle gives me a sexual thrill. This got me thinking about the practicality and pragmatics of owning an electric motorcycle in 2018, and if I could, or should, fit it into my life. So after researching the nitty-gritty details of electric vehicles and comparing the Zero to other models available today, I'll present you the state of electric motorcycles in 2018 and who, if anyone, they're ready for. Stay tuned. Just to set expectations, I'm not going to go into excruciating detail on the history of electric motorcycles, but I thought it'd be good to catch up on the last 20 years of electric motorcycle progress. If you're interested in a comprehensive historical walkthrough of electric bikes, go pick up a book called Power and Flux by Ted Dillard. In the late 90s and early 2000s, the first mass-produced electric motorcycle was manufactured by a French company called Peugeot. This powerhouse packed a whopping 3.8 horsepower engine which pushed riders up to 30 kilometers per hour, or 19 freedom units. This motorcycle was produced until 2006 and was really the only game in town until Vectrix released the VX1 in 2006. Advertised as a high-performance scooter, it could accelerate to 50 miles per hour over a blazing 7-second period and had a maximum speed of 60 miles per hour. The VX1 did have a respectable range of 65 miles, making it a realistic daily driver. It utilized nickel-cadmium batteries which were rated for about 1500 cycles, and it only took about 2 hours to go from 0% to 80% charge. Vectrix hit a speed bump in 2009 when it had to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy and restructure to prevent shuttering the company. Eventually they released a VX2, which was basically just the VX1 with an updated lithium-ion batteries, which did away with the charge memory and inferior lifespan of previous Nightcat batteries. Vectrix was able to sell the VX2 in Europe and the US, but eventually filed for bankruptcy again, this time Chapter 7, liquidating the company. While Peugeot and Vectrix manufactured and mass-produced electric motorcycles, a variety of other manufacturers released scooter-style vehicles, but something that could replace a 250 to 1000cc never got into mass production status. Sure, there were dozens, if not hundreds, of prototypes, demos, and pipe dream electric motorcycles shown off at various trade shows and PR stunts. Some notable models are the BMW Vision 100, Mission Motorcycles RS, Voletto Prototype A, and Yamaha Pez 1 and 2, but none ever made the jump to bike shop floors. Bringing it to modern days, you can find lots of electric scooters from a variety of companies available throughout the globe. These offer decent range for commuting, but lack real power or style, so I wouldn't want to be caught dead on one. On the flip side, there are a few different companies that have started to sell dirt or sport bike riding motorcycles, which include KTM and Alta. These bikes can be fun to ride because they look to provide the rider access to all the potential power of an electric engine. However, although they have lots of low-end power, the maximum speeds are only 60 to 65 miles per hour. These bikes also try to keep weight and size down, and so are equipped with battery packs that are significantly smaller and provide limited range, especially when utilizing this power, which make them very poor commuter motorcycles. While researching, I was looking for something that could replace my Buell or my R1. Two companies advertised fast, powerful street bikes, but I found they were effectively inaccessible to me. The Lightning, which advertises a 200 mile per hour max speed at a whopping $40,000, seemed like it might be vaporware. Even though there are supposedly a handful of them on the road, you can't find them available in showrooms and don't really offer a test drive before you build to order one from their website. So even if I wanted to shell out an extra $25,000 for an electric R1, I'm not sure how the hell I'd get one. Then I looked into the Energica Ego from a small Italian startup. Energica. This bike advertises 150 mile per hour top speed, putting it at about the performance range of modern 600cc competitors. The range is advertised at a respectable 70 to 120 miles, allowing you to bop around for a few hours without needing to charge back up. So I signed up to try and get a test ride,
But then I found out that the availability to purchase and view these bikes is incredibly limited, and the closest showroom that offered test rides to me was SoCal. So even though this has got performance comparable to most sport bikes, because of lack of availability, it's outside the scope of most people's consideration, including mine.
If you've dismissed electric vehicles previously or are just new to the concept, there are some awesome general benefits to EVs.
The good, the bad, and the neutral. Range is always the number one concern for electric vehicles, even though pragmatically it's not something most will bump up against. Modern electric motorcycles can get between 70 to 200 miles per charge, which far exceeds most people's daily commuting needs. Charging electric motorcycles is a significantly simpler proposition than an electric car, as batteries are much smaller and so take less time to reach full capacity. With a Tesla or another electric vehicle, you'll probably want to install a custom charger at home connecting to a 240 volt power outlet if you want to use the vehicle as a daily driver. But an electric motorcycle can charge overnight on just a standard 110 volt wall outlet. If you do need to recharge your motorcycle on the go, there are public EV chargers sprinkled liberally through several countries. There is variability in charge speeds, and if you want to get back to a full charge, you might need to hang out as long as an hour at the fastest charging stations, level 2. They also aren't necessarily free. My point is if you're going greater distances than you can handle on a single charge, it's doable for most people. This might sound crazy for some, but I feel like there's a really simple solution if you need the flexibility of gasoline occasionally while riding your electric vehicle in most circumstances. Own 2 vehicles. If you're considering a $15,000 to $40,000 electric motorcycle, you can probably afford a second bike. Maintenance and costs. Most electric motorcycles cost more than similarly powered and spec combustion engine bikes. This is a reality of the reduced economies of scale on electric motorcycles, as well as the relative age of the technology used to create them. There's also a much smaller secondary market for these bikes, so you'll probably have to pay the premium for buying one on the showroom floor. On the flip side, there are a few things that can reduce the long-term cost of electric motorcycles. I've mentioned before that I'm not much of a gearhead, so for anything but the most basic motorcycle maintenance tasks, I end up taking my bikes to a shop. Some of the common maintenance tasks that you won't need to worry about with most electric motorcycles: maintaining the clutch or associated cables and fluids, changing the oil filter, changing the air filter, changing the fuel filter, replacing spark plugs or adjusting valves and hoses, chain adjustments or replacing timing belts, and of course, no needing to stop at gas stations. To offset some of the costs, there are also tax incentives based on state, but the federal tax credits of previous years aren't applicable to electric motorcycles in 2018. The bottom line for costs is that you're going to pay more for an electric motorcycle compared to a comparable gasoline-powered bike, but you might make some of it up in long-term reduction in costs and the time spent wrenching on it. I know this point is going to be very hit or miss for people, but it isn't important if you're considering an electric motorcycle. If you're a lefty, liberal, coastal elite, cuck, blue pill, whatever, and you care about lame-ass shit like your environmental impact while riding, EVs are of course a major way to reduce your overall carbon footprint. Now, of course, a lot of electricity isn't carbon neutral or negative, but it's much better than gasoline, and you could someday live out your libertarian doomsday power fantasies of powering your bike via solar or other renewable that you generate yourself, opposed to the corporation or government-owned dino juice producers. The final big picture benefit I see to electric bikes, which isn't necessarily an electric-only benefit, although it is consistent among electric motorcycles, is that they're far simpler to operate than clutch-driven vehicles. One of the most obvious differences in riding the Zero was the lack of needing to control the clutch. This simplicity removes another barrier to riding a motorcycle, making them much more accessible. Now, we all have a friend or family member who would probably ride if it was simpler overall, or maybe somebody who rides now but is just uncoordinated as fuck and would probably be way less likely to die if they had 2 less buttons to manage. Removing the clutch on a bike is something I would consider a safety feature for a lot of people by reducing the number of things to manage and control, freeing up cognitive capacity for the rider. As much as this makes EVs more accessible for some, the simplicity can be a turnoff for those who ride a motorcycle for the pleasure they get from having the additional control over the vehicle.
No, me bored.
I believe most people in the end would probably prefer the reduction in complexity that comes from removing the need to control the clutch. However, no clutch means that some percentage of riders will never consider an electric motorcycle, preferring tank woolies over ease of use. With the information gathered, I headed over to the showroom for my test ride. I admit that I had pretty high expectations from watching other motor vloggers and Zero's own promotional videos, which painted this beautiful picture of powerful, torquey performance.
Holy, this thing is just go! Whoa!
The Zero has 2 modes, Eco and Performance. I was used to this because my 2009 R1 has a very similar mode to assist in controlling the throttle response. I started the bike in Eco mode, and it felt like I was riding a self-propelled BMX bicycle, or the motorcycle equivalent of a Prius. The acceleration, even at max twist of the throttle, was deliberate and smooth, but not at all exciting. In Performance mode, it felt like something closing in on the performance of a 600, but was more like a 250. Since there's no clutch, there's no ability to ramp up and dump power from the engine, allowing you to do something like, say, say, a wheelie. Supposedly you can power it up, but I didn't ride it long enough or in an open enough area to determine specifically how to make that happen. Walking away from the experience, I was actually pretty surprised at how underwhelmed I was. Maybe it's because I've ridden 1000cc bikes for years, or maybe I'm just more used to driving at high speeds than these dudes. But I walked away feeling like it was more a replacement for my Buell than my R1. That isn't to say the bike was bad or that I wouldn't consider it, just the realization that it definitely didn't compare to the performance of a super sport. Final verdict and recommendations. After all the research and hands-on experience, I know that electric motorcycles aren't an everybody thing, but I do believe that more people should consider them. Let's get to some conclusions on who electric motorcycles are right for today. City riders who are looking for something to efficiently, easily, and cheaply move around the city. The lack of power and range aren't likely to be an issue for this purpose, and there are plenty of options from a variety of companies to choose from. Although, don't expect something stylish, as these are utilitarian vehicles. Commuters who ride sub 100 miles per day should give electric motorcycles a look. The Zeros provide good range, easily achieve highway speeds, provide comfort and utility, with less maintenance to manage, which will be nice if you're putting 5,000 plus miles on your bike each year. Sport bike riders can find good options from KTM and Alta to compare with other supermotos if you race or enjoy getting out for an afternoon of trail riding. No Clutch opens up the option of instead placing a rear brake lever to the left handlebar, but you'll want to pass on these bikes if you prefer endurance or multi-day runs. For super sport riders, I don't think we're really there yet. Sure, if there's an Energica in your area, I definitely check it out before closing that door, but until the technology is democratized enough to have at least a few sub $20,000 models to choose from, it's hard to rationalize the price. In the end, an electric motorcycle in 2018 is possible for nearly anyone, but it's more of a lifestyle and a statement of your values than you might be up for.
There hasn't really been much in the way of breakthroughs in battery technology in more than a decade, which I think is probably why we haven't seen significant leaps in power or range in these electric vehicles. The only way to go faster or farther that these companies have come up with is jamming a bigger battery in the vehicle, which adds weight and size, not to mention increases the total amount of time it takes to charge. It's not really a surprise to me that Tesla realized they could only go so far with bigger batteries and faster charging, and just said, fuck it, we'll engineer a way to swap your battery in like 2 minutes. I was really excited to get to ride the Zero because the idea of a high-tech, super powerful electric motorcycle sounded amazing. Even though I'm disappointed that they aren't really right for my needs quite yet, and I would be very surprised if there was something comparable to my R1 by 2020, good luck, Harley. I would totally recommend an electric motorcycle to people with different use cases. 2 minor announcements before I close this out. First, shout out to everybody who donated or provided words of encouragement to Bree. We raised a few $1,000s to help her out. Awesome. I talked to her a little bit after the video was posted as she was prepping to do an interview with the local Seattle shock jock, and I took that as a sign that she's healing and beginning to feel more comfortable discussing the incident openly. I'd like to think the support she got from the posting of that video was a large part of that healing. Finally, it's with a heavy heart that I announced that this is the last video I'll be shooting in this garage because I'm moving next month. So let's take a look at all the good times.
I will remember you. Will you remember me? Don't let your life pass you by.
The next video will be in an all-new garage, probably about the same quality as this one. I don't know. We'll see. Love you all. Ride fast and take chances. Oh, I almost forgot, speaking of high-tech motorcycle stuff, those Scully AR whatever Phoenix helmets are shipping now. And I emailed them and tweeted at them like months back, telling them how much of a huge influencing motovlogger I am over here in the United States. But they didn't get back to me. You should tweet at them and tell them to send me one of those fucking helmets so that I can test it out and let you know if it sucks or not. I don't want to buy one. There's so much money.